Wow, that was a pretty good introduction. My goodness. Well, first of all, thank you, Pat, and everybody here in the Gonzaga family for having me. I mean, you've all grown a lot this season, this year, and I guess that's kind of what I'd like to talk about is come here, sweetie, come here. You can help me. Is you guys saw that? You got to see that awesome video of me doing some special things. Yeah, I did special things. Can you say Dada's fast? Dada's fast. Okay, thank you, sweetie. Go play with Mama, okay? And so the million-dollar question is how did that happen? How did those special things occur? And I think the really neat part about having you guys here and having everybody here and sort of seeing those moments, which were rare for me. You got this. Those are the sort of the highlights. There's maybe a few. There was a few other races that were pretty special to me that weren't on that video. Those were the super special moments that every athlete spends all their time dreaming about and waiting for, and those very extremely even rare of the rare moments I was trying for my whole career, and those were the only ones when I walked away feeling like, oh wow, sort of a wow moment. Not just for obviously because of the magnitude of it, but the American record was something very special because you could see in the previous couple clips, it was a big crowd around. But even in that moment when I was running that mile, it was besides the fact that people knew it was going on and the fact that it was publicized, there was very few people actually at that race. But it was still a moment in my career, and it ended up being one of the last moments of my career, where I just had complete control over my running. I was sort of doing as I pleased, so to speak, sort of running as fast as I wanted to run. I had this goal. I had something I wanted to accomplish, and I went out and I executed it. And as most of you guys have come to find out, those moments don't always happen. You have a plan and you go out and you can come close to that. It's not always a perfect. It's not a perfect story. Success is very, very rarely a perfect story. So that being said, so what got me there, and what can I tell all of you here that you guys can take away and go back and apply to obviously we're at a track banquet, but there's other people here, and you can apply that to other parts of your life, and that I'm trying now that I've taken a step away from running to apply to the rest of my life, including raising my daughter. And I really believe that what I was doing and what made me successful was falling in love with the growth of it, and feeling like I was doing something special, and seeing the growth. And a child is actually a perfect example of that, because there's something very satisfying, especially when a child is young, to seeing them develop. You can in a very short period of time, you can see, you know, if I go away for a few weeks and I come back, my daughter knows things that she didn't know. She can do things that she couldn't do before, that we take for granted, like speaking, eating, using your hands to touch things, grab things. And those are things that she's learning, and it's really fascinating as a parent to see that happen. To see, you can almost literally see the neurons in her brain connecting, and you know, I'm not a doctor and I can't remember exactly how it works, but in general you can sort of see that happening, and you're like, oh, it's really a neat thing to kind of watch, especially when it's your own flesh and blood and you're participating in that process and you're helping that process along. So let's bring it back to the running part, to the running aspect of it, and say, you know, Alan Webb, you know, he was doing these things, and I think what made me really, really good is because from an early age, I became kind of addicted to that process and seeing myself get better at something, and it was very, I don't know, empowering, I guess you could say the word was. And I went with it, and it was something that it came very naturally to me to sort of be in that process of improving and seeing myself get better at something. And it became much easier for me to kind of grasp that, because obviously I had some talent, and when I saw that, I recognized that talent, and I recognized that I had a little bit easier time improving at this particular sport than others did. I immediately knew this is my calling. So it was easy for me to narrow my focus on the sport of running, because I succeeded so quickly at it, and so it was kind of easy for me to kind of pick, well, where am I going to focus all this energy that I have? I can try to be a doctor, I can try to be a lawyer, I can try to be a swimmer, I can try to be a basketball player. I'm short. Basketball wasn't in the cards, so I chose running. You know, like that choice became easy because I succeeded so quickly at it. And so everybody's different. Everybody has different talents. Yada yada yada. But you can see how early on it was that sort of love of seeing myself grow that really came through, and you could see the improvement very quickly from when I really dedicated myself to running my freshman/sophomore year in high school. Now there's other physiological things that I did that I believe led to some of those other early successes and then beyond. But that's what I want to sort of give to especially the athletes here tonight is that you guys can have this story. This story is yours. It already is. You're already halfway. You're here. You're in college, and so you're already along this path. And so I kind of want to take these moments, and if you think that they're special, and everybody keeps telling me that they are. I mean, I know they're special for me, and put it in yourself and say that this is you. These are your moments that are going to happen, or they've already happened, and they can happen again for you. They really can. And I've already seen it, and I've already even for I had the pleasure of meeting Nick, who's on your team, and I've even seen it happen on somebody on your team. I got to go on a few runs when Nick was doing an internship at Nike, and I'd see him out in the mornings running with myself and the rest of the guys on Jerry's team, and I don't know, I could just see that he was on a mission for himself. You know, he wasn't trying to break the American record. He wasn't trying to do things that I was trying to. He was on his own path, or he is on his own path. And you guys are on your own little trajectory here, to your own little version of this, and you're gonna have these special moments. And it was really cool to I could just see it in his eyes, you know, in just every training run, even if it was an easy run, just the positivity there and the excitement that you pour into to each day of training has a huge effect on how your performances come out. And I had a conversation with another Nike employee that also ran with him and said, yeah, I mean, I was telling Nick about my times, and he thought I was so great, and you know, then like a year later, he was running just as fast, and you know, it was no coincidence that 4 months later, Nick's PRing in the 5K. What'd you run? 14:29? Okay, yeah. So, but you were like a 15:10 guy or something like that, like a year, like 4 months before. So it's like, you know, because Nick things were going awesome for him. He's doing an internship at Nike. He's running with, you know, top runners in the country / world. You could tell he felt like he was doing something special. Even if that special was not to make the Olympic team, that special was not to do these things. That special was Nick Roach special. That was the Nick Roach special. He was on his own journey, and that's what I was doing. And there's not really a lot of difference there. Just sort of venue is the difference, right? And so it was really cool to kind of see that, and I see it in other parts. And I had a really good buddy of mine who actually trained with me. I remember going for runs with this. His name's Jacob Fry. I ran. I think he ran about like a 2:17 marathon. Anyway, I grew up with him in Northern Virginia, and I'd go on runs, and when I first met my wife, and we'd talk about girls, and you know, and when he met his wife, and I met mine, we would go for runs, and anyway, he was a runner, and he learned how to dedicate himself. And when he stopped running, he applied to law school. He was a mediocre student, but then he got waitlisted at Villanova, hung in there, got into Villanova, ended up being top 10% of his class at Villanova, went and got an internship at a big time law firm, did the law thing with the intent of trying to get into politics, worked his butt off to be involved with the community, and he got himself elected to be on a city council member in Minneapolis. And we'd still talk occasionally, and he would say, Alan, you know, it's the same thing, the same mindset I used to get through workouts and to prepare for it. I used to go to take my LSATs, to go to take all the tests that he had to do to get through law school. He was literally using the same concepts that he did in running, and he applied that to other parts of his life, and it multiplied in every way. And he was like, it's the same thing. It's the same process. And he felt like he was doing something special. And that's sort of the message that I would like to impart on you and explain sort of the realizations that I've sort of had about my own running career, and just encourage everybody to all the athletes and anybody else sort of looking for some inspiration, I guess, and you use that as a way to look at yourself in whatever you do to get the best out of yourself, because that's really what I guess life is all about, is trying to use the tools that you were given for whatever purpose that is just imposed on you. And for me, that purpose was clearly running, and that's basically the reason why I felt like I had to take a step away from running, because I finally woke up one day and I realized that moment had passed. that I didn't feel like I was doing something special. You know, I looked around at the running community, the guys that I was competing against, the guys that I was at one point beating, and those guys were accomplishing the goals that I wanted to accomplish. And somewhere along the way, that feeling of that I was doing something special, that I was accomplishing, you know, I was moving, progressing forward, those moments had gone, and that was when I knew that it was time for me to walk away. And now I'm here talking to you guys, and now I you know, because I feel like I am doing something special, because I feel like I have something to offer. I feel like I have something to give back, and I hope it's worth it, and I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope it's helpful to everybody in the room. But there were some pretty cool stories along the way. Number one was when I set the American record that year. I think the coolest part about that story is, and sort of where that extra gear came from, was I met my wife that year. And I have to give her a lot of the credit, because a lot of the credit and a lot of the blame too, to be honest with you, because I'll never be able to top that. I also had a couple other decent races. I won the Drake. My favorite story is the story that I won the Drake Mile earlier that year. Also a Steve Scott record. And Julie and I had met each other a few months earlier, but she lived in Indianapolis, and I lived in Virginia. But you know, the days of the internet and such, you can keep in touch quite easily. Facebook, I don't have Facebook now, but I did back then. And you know, keeping in touch, yada yada yada. Oh, I'm gonna be at Drake. You're gonna be at Drake. Oh, this is great. Let's meet up. So we had our first real date at Drake, and the night before Drake, and we had our first date and our first kiss that night too. So and then so suddenly Alan Webb is like awesome. Like, he was pretty good before, but he's like really, really good now. Like, whoa, like, where did this come from? It's like the fastest somebody's ever run in April, like, ever. Like, why is he running so fast now? Well, nobody knows that story, so now you know. And, you know, it got better from there too, and we kept and we, you know, started seeing each other more, but it was still sort of at meets. But I want to talk about feeling like something special is happening. You know, that season, I think it was such a great summer, such a special summer, and I can't. I'll never be able to reproduce. I'll never be able to meet my wife for the first time and kiss my wife for the first time again. Like so will I ever be able to do that again? And you know, and that was another reason I'm like, how did I do that? Like, how did I have that special moment? And like, I'm like, well, I can't. It'd be impossible to reproduce that moment again. You know, that extra little bit that suddenly I had that I didn't have. That, you know, and so it's kind of a cool story to share, and it's another example of how, you know, if you believe like you're doing something special, it really has an effect on how you perform. So I guess let's go back in time. Another really neat story that I'd love to share with you is after I set the high school record. Let's go back to high school. So we're going back in time now. So after I because the 330 was the same year. Was the same year as the American record. So it's basically the same neat story. Anyway, Pat brought up music in his introduction to me. So I have another really kind of neat music story so after I ran at pre my senior year. Well, this is actually after the whole season was done, was over. I had the great pleasure of appearing on the David Letterman show, which is just probably a bigger highlight than any of this stuff. At least to the mainstream people. More people probably saw that than any of any of these events combined. Especially considering the American record was like right when Flow Track was like in its infancy. And I believe Mark Floriani and the Rojo brothers owe me a cut of their dough, because that video was like right when they started, and it like totally helped them out. And when I broke 4 minutes in high school for the first time, in fourth place behind me was, oh gosh, no, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he had a Let'sRun.com jersey, and it's just like this picture of me with, oh gosh, who was it? Not Rojo. It was not him. Not Clint Virant. I forget his name. Anyway, Let'sRun.com jersey right there, smash. So like every picture was like perfect little commercial for them. Anyway, that's not the cool story. The cool story is that I got to go on the Letterman show after my senior year, and before the show, me and my dad got to sit in the audience and watch Coldplay do their sound check, which was totally sweet. Well, it was really just what's his name? Chris. What's his last name? Chris. Say again. Martin. Chris Martin. Thank you. I'm drawing my names are not good. Yeah. So it was just Chris Martin. He was practicing the song Trouble. It was just him on the piano practicing that song Trouble, doing sound check, and me and my dad are just chilling. It's me and my dad in this like audience. We're just like, whoa, this is awesome. And so he's just jamming on the piano, doing his thing, and like stopping halfway through, going through. But one of the things was interesting about that was that when you're in there, they keep it really cold. And we're in there and we're just like, man, it is freezing in here. Like they got the air conditioning just blasting. And we go up. I go up to the dressing room. I'm like, man, why is it so cold in there? Because they got, like Letterman's got like, he's got makeup on and they got these lights, and so they're like, we got to keep it cold because when you're up there, he's like talking and carrying on, and he's got these hot lights and makeup on and stuff like that, and he doesn't want to get all like sweaty. So it was interesting. But in the meantime, we're just like shivering and watching Chris Martin play the piano. But it gets even cooler because we're up in the dressing room, and Coldplay is the whole band was there, but even though Chris was the only one actually played because that song was just him on the piano. But he's up there, and they're like in the dressing room right next to us, and I'm like, oh sweet, let's go get Coldplay's autograph. So we go over there and say, hey, can I have your autograph? So that was when I was playing the fan or whatever, which was, so that was cool. And then then my dad also was in the green room with Damon Wayans was the other guest, and he was in the green room, and my dad was, and he was talking to Damon Wayans. My dad talking to Damon Wayans in the green room. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. And so after I went on with David, I went back up to the dressing room, and they're like, well, what do you want to eat? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, pizza, I guess. They're like, get the kid a pizza. Get this kid a pizza. And so we had pizza and Coke waiting for us as soon as I finished talking to Dave. And so I finished the talk, and I go up there, and me and my dad we're eating pizza, we're drinking Cokes or whatever, and we're watching the video, and suddenly, and he's like talking, and they had this whole bit about he had this car that they were gonna flip over, and he was just like hyping up flipping over this car with these like firefighters or something like that they recruited somehow, and they're like, oh, we're gonna flip over this car, and it's like hyping up this thing with a videotape flipping over a car. It was just, I don't know, it's Letterman. He was just doing goofy stuff, whatever. And so we're just watching the thing, and they're like, oh, we gotta get the kid to help us flip over the car. This is when I was 18, obviously. I was a kid then. We gotta get the kid to flip over the car with us. And me and my dad were like watching, because they had these little TVs you can just like watch, and we're sitting there like eating pizza, and like they're like, get the kid. We need to get him to help flip the car over. And but like literally sitting there like eating pizza and just looking at each other like, what do we do? Like, I'm like, it's just us in the room. There's nobody else in this little tiny little room. And we're just like, and we sort of walk over to the door, and like we open the door, and I'm looking out, and I'm like, is somebody gonna come get me? Like, what do I do? Like, do I go out there? And sure enough, like a minute later, the elevator that I went up an elevator to go to these dressing rooms. I'm just sort of waiting there. I'm like, okay. And the elevator opens, just like 5 cameras, and this dude being like, come on, you gotta go. And then if you watch really closely, you can see me being like, oh, Dad, here, pizza. And you can see me really quickly be like, oh, take it, go. And I go out there and we flip this car over. It was ridiculous, but but you know, it's Letterman, so he's just doing ridiculous things. So. But you know, David Letterman, I thought of that story because I know Letterman's retiring, and I gotta milk this thing until I die. So, so I hope I entertain you guys with a few great stories. I hope I inspired you a little bit. You know, I know you guys got regionals coming up. Best of luck in that, and use everything you have. Use the passion that you have to create your own special story. Live for those special moments in your life, whatever they may be, athletically or beyond. Because if you do, you never know, you know, what special moments might come about. So, thank you for having me.
And I know that Alan, when he arrived this morning at the airport, he thanked me for inviting him to come here. So an honor to have Alan Webb and share his message. And I know we're going to take that to heart because one of our themes for our men and women are to shadow excellence. And being on the David Letterman show, shadowing excellence. I expect some of you people to get on some of those shows. Wear the Gonzaga jerseys and shorts and what have you, and let's bring more money into our program. Thank you very much. Come on up, Patty. We're going to do a little review of our season, and then we'll